Welcome to the Common Ground blog. Before we get into what we talked about on Wednesday, let me just go over a few announcements with you. I got the posters here. So the first one is January 18th. We are going to the Sports Emporium. It costs $30 to come with us, and that gets you, let me see, 2 rounds of laser tag, 2 go-kart rides, and a card or whatever with a bunch of arcade tokens. It's going to be a blast. We're going to have so much fun. If you're going to come with us, be here at the church at 1 o'clock, and we'll be returning at 5:30. Next, we got the Big Mac Winter Slam coming up. If you want to go, you need one of these little doohickeys right here. Whoops. This is the registration form, which is now upside down. This is the registration form. It has all the information that you need. It's $85 to go. If you want to come with us, you got to let us know soon if you want to come. This is going to be fun. It's going to be a blast. Okay. So Wednesday night, we went through our whole year. We talked about the missions trip coming up this summer. We talked about what we want to do next summer, and then in 2016, our trip to Africa. We talked about a lot, and we said that our theme for the year, which is something that we've never done before, but the theme for the year is going to be putting others first. And so we started to talk a little bit about what that means exactly. And to get into that, we looked at Matthew 22:34 through 40. So if you have a Bible near you, get it out and let's read it together. Now here's the story. Here's what's going on, okay? Jesus is talking to a big crowd of people, and some of the religious leaders of that day are there, and they're trying to trap him in a question. They're trying to make him look stupid. And Jesus, being God, kind of turns the whole thing around on them and makes them look stupid. And so they're really mad. They're fuming. And so they send one of their top guys and one of the smartest guys to try and trap him in one of these questions. Now, the Bible says that this guy was a scribe, someone who would have been very much, in our day today, would have been very much like, he would have been like a lawyer. Someone who knew the law. He lived in a village. People would come to him for different law things. They want to get the deed to their house changed or something. That would have been this guy. So he was very, very smart. He knew the law. He knew the Old Testament really, really well. And so he comes to Jesus in the midst of this argument with the religious leaders. And he asks him this very simple question. He says, Teacher, Jesus, what is the greatest commandment? Out of the whole Old Testament, all the law and the prophets, which is the greatest commandment? And this is what we have to understand here. The law to them, back in Jesus' day, was life. They lived their entire lives according to the law, according to this book. The whole Old Testament, it was life to them. It was how they lived. It was how they didn't do anything outside of the law, outside of this book. And so to ask Jesus, which is the greatest commandment, he's saying, out of all of this whole book right here, which one is the greatest? Which is the best way to live life? That's basically what he was asking him. Which is the best way to live life? What in life should we focus on? And Jesus gives him this really simple answer. In verse 37, it says this. Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. This is a pretty simple yet really big statement that Jesus makes. I mean, this guy wants to know, what's the best way to live life, Jesus? Out of this whole thing, what's the best way to live life? And Jesus says the best thing you can do, the number 1 and 2 things you can do, love God with everything that you are. He says heart, soul, mind, and strength. That covers everything about us. He says love God with everything that you are, and then love your neighbor as yourself. In other words, put others before yourself. Love there's so many definitions that can get kind of complicated, but to simply put it, love is putting others before yourself, putting the needs and the wants of someone else before you, before what you want and you need. That's what love is. And so when Jesus says love your neighbor as yourself, he's saying put others before you. Put others' wants and needs before yours. Put others first. And he's not saying this is just like good advice. This is the best way to live life. Put God first in your life and then put others. Now here's what I'm thinking, and this is what we kind of talked about. It's easy to love God, and I don't say that flippantly. I say that, with all the sincerity that it deserves. I mean, God is God. He's so much greater. He's so awesome. He's so good to us that loving him is, well, it's a lot easier than loving other people, because people are, we're terrible to each other. We lie. We cheat on each other. We stab each other in the back. It's hard to love other people because we are not so good. We're not so awesome. I mean, God, he's so good and awesome. When we could say it's easy to love him because he's so good to us. He's so good that loving him is not a hard thing. But loving other people, that is a really tough thing because we're so rotten to each other. But Jesus says this is what we have to do. This is the best way to live life. Love God, put him first in your life, and then love others before yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. Put others first. And so, as we go through this series and our whole year in our lesson times, and hopefully in this blog, we're going to look at tangible ways that we can love others and put others before us, before ourselves. And hopefully this will all kind of culminate and come to a really big crescendo, if you will, in our missions trips, in our service projects, that we can put others before ourselves in acts of love and acts of service. And so this year I really want us to find tangible ways that we can love others and put others before ourselves. So I hope that this helps you out, and I hope that we see you on Wednesday.